It is shorter.
Julie's
Like, we have all of our research.
right. So you're six. Yeah.
All right, it's 4 o'clock. How is everyone? Good? The survivors. Well done, healthy people.
Really.
I appreciate your immune systems and whatever, what's that?
I was sick last week. Weird.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm glad for your immune system and its recovery. Or your lifestyles that permit you to be here and healthy. I think a lot of people are out sick. I was home all day with my son. He was sick home from school, so I understand. I was like, no, this is the only class I came here for. This is it. There's no way we can cancel this. So I canceled everything else all day. But of course, I know our time is a premium here and presentations are limited, right? We only have so many chances to do this. That's why I choose to structure it in this way, right? The presentations, the ability for you to speak in front of a group of people that are dedicated to pay attention to you and give you insightful, uplifting feedback, I think is more limited than you might expect. And I know it may not be in your purview, or at least in your preference for like how you want to like spend your time. I get that. But that's like anything. That's like a growthful thing. Like going to the gym. I don't know anyone that lives in the gym and just like loves it. It's a growthful experience. Standing in front of people and presenting information in a thoughtful, creative, and engaging way is a life skill that you'll use forever. It doesn't go away. It doesn't matter what job you're in. Even as a clinician, where you're spending the majority of your time with a single other person, you have ample opportunity and demands to speak in front of groups of people, whether you're presenting that material or research or information, conferences and symposiums, panels, or even speaking in front of a group of clients for like group therapy or some other kind of structure, that this particular skill set is really helpful. So we arrange it in that way. I arrange it in this way because I know it's a highly, it's a skill that's in high demand. And I know that there are limited opportunities for you to do that. This week, we're talking about future robots, all that good stuff, automation and future of IO. I know that there's like limited material there. Hey, welcome. So I've posted another like for your own future reference. There's PsyOp's website. You know PsyOp, everyone's familiar with PsyOp. So they have different portals or different places on their website where they will display information about top trends. They gather data on a regular basis and they look at the top 10 trends of IO every year. And you can look back over many years and see how those trends have changed. And they also have just the future of work as a page on their site, just what it might look like. Interestingly, I'm a little bit surprised that remote work, yes, it's much more common than anyone expected, but that hasn't really changed many of their top 10 trends. A lot of the trends in IO are still the same. Automation, AI, deep learning, like all of that is still very prominent. It hasn't gone away, and it's only a matter of where you do it that has changed a little bit. Whether you're remote and your access to the workforce has expanded substantially because of the commonplace of hiring people wherever they're at. So that I think is not the actual material itself. So I was a little surprised. I thought, it's going to be all like COVID stuff. It's going to be like remote work and that's all that's going to matter. But no, it's still a lot of the same kind of trends. Mental health is still a major issue in the field of work. And that I think has only grown in prominence over the past 10 years. It's kind of ebbed and flowed a little bit, but in the past couple of years, 2-3 years, there's been a lot of focus on that. So I think that's interesting. And maybe some of the future directions that we're going in, who knows? So the articles on there are limited. I also gave you a PowerPoint slide from a former student, not a former student, she's in a second year. She will be a former student in a year. I thought it was really good. I really liked her presentation because it was on more educational kind of material. She gave a presentation a year ago on ONet. Is everyone familiar with ONet? You're familiar with that? You've used it, navigated a little bit? Okay, if you haven't, I would check out the presentation that's linked on Blackboard, but check out ONET as well, in that it provides you with like job titles and then the responsibilities of those job titles en masse, right? Like it's not for a job. You're not actually job hunting on that site per se. It's just looking cumulatively or collectively, kind of putting all these things together and trying to give a more broad understanding of the domains, and then very specific domains of types of jobs and the things that people do in those types of jobs. It's quite helpful for then you to then craft for yourself more of a trajectory on where you want to go, your future in IO, but also what words to use in that circumstance. So like what keywords to search for and what things to be aware of when you're applying for jobs. If you're looking at someone that's like talent management versus a recruiter, like what are those differences? Versus someone that's in HR or someone that's in people management. Like they're different things, and they use different terminology to designate the differences between them. So ONET helps you capture some of those words, some of those ideas, and use them for your benefit, because then you'll need to search through jobs more carefully and deliberately with how you search for them, but also how you're going to craft your CV and resume as you're looking for those to kind of cultivate the kind of person you want to represent yourself as, to see, do you have the experience? Do you have the training? And sometimes it is just translating the previous work that you've done into the language of the job you're applying for. Does that make sense? So that's a little bit about what I wanted to talk about there. I also put in a presentation that Dr. Iverson and I and some other colleagues gave at SIOP a few years ago. I gave it one because it's about the future of IO, yeah, but more so I gave it to you because I wanted you to see what a panel discussion looks like on paper, like what that actually looks like at SIOP, in case you were inclined to pursue something like that, what you could then try and understand for yourself what it entails, like what actual kind of project they have approved in the past. And I would say the actual paper that we supplied to them was much longer. This is a white paper, so it's like condensed to a much shorter version. The thing we sent to them in its full form to get approved for the panel discussion, I don't remember how many pages it was many. There are a lot of team members, and so we all kind of took different parts and fleshed it out, because it was, I don't know how many pages, 30, 40, 50, I have no idea. It was a lot. But I wanted to at least to have you be exposed to some of the kinds of white papers and materials and panel discussions that exist at SIOP. Because I do think if you did want to pursue that, if you did have the time and availability to dedicate toward a project like that, and you could use any of the projects that you've done in this program to work together with maybe a group of people and then apply to SIOP for the following year. This year is already done, right? Like for this coming spring, those submissions were due in September. So thinking about next September, what could you possibly use to apply with? So, any clarification questions there?
Is it common for current students to present or apply to SIOP? It sounds like such a,
A lofty goal?
lofty goal, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's really cool that you're encouraging that. I'm curious,
Yeah.
What you kind of have seen in the past.
So with SIOP specifically, there's more industry professionals and academics at that conference as opposed to other conferences that are more academic. And in those more academic conferences, you actually have more students presenting because they're part of the academic sphere. Given that it's a little bit more industry heavy, there are fewer students that do present, but they still do. And the better programs, more scholarly programs, do have more ongoing research that participate in that kind of avenue. But in the more applied programs, our better chance to get accepted for something like SIOP would be in a panel discussion, because we're more like boots on the ground, right? We're in the industry. We actually do the work, but we're also with one foot in academia as well, still as students. So yes, I do think students have presented from our cohort before several times. I do think it's not everyone, it's certainly rare, but they do on a regular basis, I would say. And our alumni are pretty involved in some of the committees and boards for SIOP as well, like either membership committee or what's the other one, the like marketing kind of representation committee. There's policy groups and United Nations, groups that our alumni are part of as well. So finding ways to engage or interact with SIOP, I think, is a good idea. If it happens to be as a panel speaker, awesome. If you volunteer and want to be on a committee, great as well. Just getting involved, I think, is in your best interest for most people. Yeah. Abraham.
Was similar
Yeah.
understanding, like for students to participate, is it like more so a research heavy thing? Like if it's in
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
research,
SIOP is unique. It is deeply research heavy. For those that are doing the research, it's getting a poster accepted there is extremely difficult because they don't have many poster sessions. In the poster sessions they have, they'll only have like maybe 50 posters or so per session. Whereas other conferences that I've been to, the norm is several hundred posters per session. And if you submit a poster, you're probably going, right? You're going to get accepted in high likelihood. Panels are more common for SIOP. Just they have more of them, so more chance to get accepted in that way.
Just on that note, then, what is some of the advantages? I know going to those panels and those conferences is to network and kind of talk to like-minded people,
Yeah,
inspired. What are some other advantages?
yeah. I think another advantage would be like getting energized by it because you're taking in all this information. It's really exciting and fun to see because you're at the bleeding edge. You're on the forefront. It's not published yet. This information is just getting out there for the first time. It's not in a journal and manuscript or anything like that yet. It's not getting picked up by Forbes or CNBC or like the Fortune or whatever outlet that other IO professionals publish in. This is the first time generally that it's getting published. So in that way, I think it's really exciting to be there and be a part of those discussions. You get to meet the people because it's a relatively young field. So the people that are like the founders of this or that, they're alive and they're there. They're at SIOP still. So it's unlike a clinical where Freud's not there, but you have like Locke and Latham will be there, like goal setting theory guys, like they will be there, and countless others, right? Like it's really fun. Schneider, Avolo, like I've met them all. They're great. They're super nice, very approachable. Just go, hey, love your work. You're amazing, and they'll say, thank you so much. Who are you, young man? And they'll just talk to you. It's fun. Like it's a good time. The other thing, of course, networking is really great. Learning the material and getting the information, I think, is really great. The other part that I think is really nice is if you go as a group or several of you go together. I think it provides a lot more because it's outside of class, like a lot more like community and a lot more like engage, like for yourselves, just more things to do together and share as a common memory and experience. It's fun. Like we always have a great time. When the students go, we'll like have a big dinner, like all of us together, we'll go out for a meal or something. It's just great. Like every time we go, I enjoy it thoroughly. Yeah, it's fun. I don't know how many academic events are like truly fun, but it really is. SIOP's not the only conference though. There are many conferences that I would encourage you to consider. The WPA, I think you've heard, maybe is in Riverside this year. So that's the Western Psychological Association. That's a conference that I'm aiming for to submit some things with undergraduate students for, as well as some of the graduate students in our program. Some second years are working with me on some research, so we're going to submit to that. I think December 2nd is the deadline for that, so we're looking forward to that. But this is just to put it on your radar, right? Like for future, because WPA is always somewhere at West Coast or West area. That's one. Academy of Management is another kind of high-level scholarly conference. It's a little bit more hierarchical in that it matters where you go to school. It matters who you are. They're a little bit more snooty. But SIOP's really great. Everyone's cool. It just depends on kind of what lines you want in your CV and what kind of experiences you want in terms of conferences. Other questions, clarifications? So just to be clear, I don't think I've changed it. Maybe I did. I think last week I did change it. Next week, we're not meeting because we have Thanksgiving. I don't know about you, but having a day off or two sounds great. Maybe I'm the only one. I don't know. But for all of our health, maybe physical or mental, everyone needs a little bit of a break. So we'll do that. So next week is off. That said, though, however you want to record, because we will have one potentially recorded presentation, because it's that like last week that was like off the calendar that I thought we still had, but we actually don't. Will be potentially a recorded presentation that you can do. And that's on any topic. Yeah.
Is that like the listed week 15?
Yes. That's like the week listed 15th. It was the December 19th or something where we don't have that day.
Yeah, so week 14 is still like on.
Yeah. What day is that?
That is the 12th.
The 12th. Yeah, we're still on for the 12th. Yeah.
Are you, sorry, are you able to email us that? 'Cause I will forget.
Yeah. I can put it as an announcement on Blackboard
Yeah.
because that goes out to everybody, or at least it exists in a common space that we all see. Yes. Does that seem reasonable? I know the ones are difficult. But with the time that we have left, to give your presentations and to have one additional opportunity to record a presentation for us as a class, as one of your presentations, should be enough time for you.
Wait, so just to check, if we've done the 5 before, then we don't need to do a recorded one?
That's correct.
And then there wouldn't be anything to do then?
That is correct. You've done yourself a favor.
Well, so then I'm still curious about how the numbers are adding up and whether we should be submitting.
So because the lowest two scores, was it the lowest two? I forget if it's on the executive summaries.
Yeah,
That's right.
executive.
Lowest two on those would be dropped. So instead of, in lieu of a presentation that you wouldn't have to give, then it would only be like one of your presentations one of your executive summaries would be dropped, because there just aren't enough like weeks to accumulate all of them.
Are we still doing LinkedIn article as well?
Oh, yeah. That's a good one. Yeah, the LinkedIn article, that's a new element as well. I think it's really great. I've had students do it in the past, just on their own. And I thought we would incorporate it as a class. How do we feel about the LinkedIn article? Maybe now's not the time to ask. Okay.
Credit opportunity.
Ew, there we go. Because I'm really open. I'm flexible. My priority is the presentations and getting through the material. The LinkedIn article, I think, is just icing on the cake for me. That I think is a great opportunity for you to utilize the skills and some of the concepts that you're mastering here. Even as an extra credit, I'm fine with it. If we wanted to move it off the syllabus as points wise and put it as extra credit, I think that's a great idea. Does everyone want to do that, or you think, no, we still want that assignment? I need the motivation, the push. I need that deadline. I really need. I'm flexible in that, not on all things, but in that. Extra credit?
Extra credit is still a lot of motivation.
It's still enough?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So, yeah, I will take it off the grade book in terms of a mandatory assignment, but we can still utilize that opportunity for you as the extra credit opportunity. You're welcome. Thank you for bringing it up. Yes,
Curious, if you're gonna have a chance to like get some grading and things.
grading all the things. Well, the thing that,
Where we're at.
yeah, so the difference with like the presentations being like live, the feedback that I like go through and give feedback for every student in their presentation. I haven't entered it in Blackboard, but it exists for you, right? Like those ratings that I give, I take directly from there and I just translate the points and put it on Blackboard.
Can we see those like without a word?
We have like everybody's feedback, but we don't have specifically your feedback.
Yeah.
Mine's in there too.
Oh, it is?
It isn't?
I mean, we don't know if it's yours or not.
I always put my name in it.
But I don't think
The names don't show up.
Yeah,
For who gives you feedback?
yeah.
They're on the sheet, you're right,
Yeah.
but it doesn't come through in all the other fields do, but you don't see like the name of the person.
Maybe you should just
Yeah, that's what I
copy
thought
me.
too.
Well, I mean, I know, I see it all. Like I see the presentation feedback and I see the names of everyone that gave it to you. So I know what feedback each person is giving every other person. It's interesting. So you don't see the name of the feedback? That's the first I'm hearing of it. Interesting.
Yeah, I thought that.
It's like a hidden field now? That's so
Yeah.
weird.
I thought that you just want to keep it anonymous.
Yeah,
that's
why I was
That's the reason why you.
I mean, it's probably better to keep it that way.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't,
Intentional.
it was not intentional because I liked the idea of that radical transparency in the beginning of trying to it kind of encourages tactful feedback in that sense. I didn't know that you weren't able to see it, so that would be much more confusing on what your grades might be. Certainly I can input and just translate the numbers that I've given you already into Blackboard as grades for your presentations. For the executive summaries, the high likelihood, as I've read through it, the executive summaries that you're given, I will just give you the points like as credit. If you didn't do them, I can't give you the points, but if you did them, then I'll give you that credit for having done them.
I've done 7, you haven't given any feedback, I'm not getting it.
You're gonna be okay, yeah. If I haven't like explicitly said like, hey, you need to change some things here, this is not quite right, then you're in good shape. Yeah, no news is good news on that front.
I don't know if you've looked at any of
I haven't looked at all of them for all students, but I've looked at all of them for at least some of your work for all of you. Yes,
Could you, do you have like a deadline for yourself so that we at least know what our grade is, like
Sure.
before the last day? So like,
sure,
we
sure.
need to do extra credit.
Oh, great
then
question.
We can do it because it's
Sure.
kind of like still being in the dark.
Yeah,
I know you're very generous, but.
We have no flashlights.
You don't know how generous I am.
I
You don't
like
know.
surprises,
Yeah.
so I'm not as flexible there.
that's fine. So I'll make sure that your grades are up to date this week.
Yay.
Sure. Well, all my other classes are up to date except this one, so this is the only one I have to focus on now.
Maybe pursue a different career.
Pursue a different career. Half of us don't come back after Thanksgiving.
You need to file the withdrawal deadline and then he'll give us.
5 articles. I'll link to it.
Oh. How many LinkedIn articles can I do?
All right, it's the whole class.
All right, should we get started? Are we good?
Yeah.
All right, good. All right, let's get started with these presentations. I don't know, hopefully everyone's here. I know we're already recording, so that should be good. I think we're already signed in as well for our class, so that's good. So we'll get started with that.
Sorry, I'm gonna be annoying. Is there a way I can turn off the front lights?
That's not annoying at all. No.
Okay.
In that,
Thank you.
Oh, wow.
That's fine.
That's better? Yeah, that's better.
Hi, friends. So nice to see all your beautiful faces. When I think about the future, I think about technology, robots, or that one Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, Terminator, which was so popular and I don't even know why. It's terrifying. But anyway, in the world of I/O, the future means so much more. So as I was reading all the articles, a quote that stood out to me was that workers oppose automation because of fear. And I completely resonated with this quote because it brought up the question of like, okay, so how is this going to affect employment? And I'm sure a lot of other people have that exact same question. You kind of have to look at it from a laborer's point of view and see that basically this is shifting their compensation from workers to solely the business owners. So where does that leave the workers? And so with the workers out of it, basically with all the jobs becoming virtually automated, basically means that humans are unnecessary. And I know that's like super dramatic, but kind of like in Terminator, you know, the robots take over humankind. So it's not entirely dramatic. It happened. Let's see. Well, on the flip side, automation can also improve productivity and it can also boost the economy, but at what cost? So another quote that I found super interesting was that advances in technology has a greater impact on social disruption and psychological suffering. The World Economic Forum estimates that by 2025, about 85 million jobs will be lost due to automation. So we already saw this a lot with COVID and a lot of unemployment, but unemployment brings in a huge wave of sadness, depression, other mental health issues that honestly are still very prevalent today. So if you ask me about the future, I say the future is right now. So it's important to take care of future you today. And I think the best way to do that is by inducing these little happiness hormones called endorphins. Does anybody know how to boost these endorphins in our body naturally? Yeah, good job. Thanks, guys. Working out. I had a really cool video for you guys. Well, that's a shame. Anyway, but I was just gonna showcase my fitness studio that I attend called Trim Fitness. We practice Legree, which if you're not familiar with Legree, we practice Legree, which basically combines the elements of Pilates while emphasizing strength training and cardio elements. It's 45 minutes. It's super fun. There's music. You're sweating, crying, trembling, all of the fun things. But the instructors are really cool. They're oftentimes like telling you a lot of positive things. And my instructor this morning actually said a really, really important quote to me, and I wanted to share it with you guys. She said, "The heaviest weight to lift is the weight of a negative mind." And I thought that was a good one. So I was like, I'm going to share that today. That class, as you can see, they're all like sweating and trembling and stuff. We all go to the locker room and everybody gets ready for the day. They go to work, they take care of the kids, whatever it is they have to do. But what I've noticed is that these women and men are so incredibly chipper and happy and so excited to like get on with their life. And you know what? It's so inspiring and that makes me excited to just get on with my day. And it's just incredible what fitness can do for you. So why fitness? Why am I talking about fitness? Well, because of the mind-body connection. Your thoughts, feelings, attitudes all affect your biological functioning. So it's important to understand that there's a complex interrelationship between your mind, your body, and how it links to your work life. And I feel like now companies are starting to acknowledge this and they're moving towards this. For example, I know Google has a lot of on-site exercise facilities that they offer. They also offer, I think I read about 2 different classes, like Pilates, yoga, all that fun stuff. Another company called Swift, which is a global financial company, also just built a sports like arena type thing at their headquarters, in addition to their on-site facilities as well. So a lot of companies are moving in that direction because they see all of the benefits, you know, such as less stress, less anxiety, a boost in productivity, increase in creativity. And I think that's really important. And I'm so excited to see what the future holds for companies who are moving in that direction and to see what they offer to help their employees with their mental health. Because you know, robots are cool and all, but I think mental health is a little cooler, if you ask me. Let's see. And then just up there, if you want to check them out, that's their Instagram. And that up there is Amanda. She's a beast. She will have you shaking and trembling in ways you didn't know you could shake and tremble before. If you ever find yourself in OC area, try a class with me. There's a code up there for you to do so for free. How convenient that Julie isn't here because she's tried several classes with me. And she would tell you that it's the best. So just take my word for it. But if you have any questions, just let me know. And thank you.
Well, I really liked it. Just, I thought it was really nice how it's something you clearly know well and something that you experience, so you can talk about it comfortably, right? And even the aspect of when the video wasn't playing, but even more so when it did play, you're just still talking and very comfortable. At least that's how we heard it. One thing I would say is I like how you have the hat, right? And
Yes.
I would use, and then you have your whole like outfit for like exercise. I'd say come out a little bit more, yeah. So your
Next
whole
time.
gym fit, and so like use your body more and move around. Otherwise, great job.
I really like how you, like, I have a video and like you pointed it out as well, like you talked over it, which is really good. Usually like you watch a video and just like kind of sit in silence, which is not bad either, I love that too. But you honestly sold me on Train Rally, definitely try to positive.
Great.
And then like how you connected, you know, like fitness with mental health, which I'm a big advocate on top, but just like the future of IO and how, so I also read how it's a big fear for a lot of workers, just trying to like that change. But I like your perspective on it.
You seemed a lot more comfortable up there this time, and just like you really were enjoying the content you were talking about, and it was passionate, you know, meaningful to you, and yeah, I also enjoyed you connecting the dots at the end. You know, it could have gone into a very much just a personal, passionate, you know, presentation, but you brought it back to the future of IO, you know, at the end, and noticing trends that you were seeing in the actual workplace, you know, that major organizations are doing as it pertains to fitness, and so I thought that was really neat.
It's great that you talked about something that you're familiar with. You can speak to it personally, right? Say like, this has been my experience. These are the things that you can do with it. These are the connections that it has in these different ways. What you could work on are trying to change some of the ways in which you talk about it though. Instead of saying, I think that this is a good idea, this brain-body connection, and I think it's in your best interest to work out. It's less of a thought of yours and more of what the data say. So if you say you think this way, that gives us your credibility. But when you say this from the authority of many others, hundreds of researchers and thousands of articles and participants and studies, then it gives it a lot more credibility. Does that make sense? So instead of like referring to, I think this or I think that, try and just say what it is, right? Say the thing that you're trying to say more directly with that kind of information. The other thing I would say is to breathe a little bit. You got a little bit out of breath there for a moment, and in just a couple of moments, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't distracting or anything. I think you did a really good job. Just try and pace yourself a little bit with the content. You can pause, right? You can pause without any real expectation of needing a question or any type of moment where it's necessary. You could just pause for yourself. It's okay to just take a moment, take a deep breath, whatever you got to do, and just kind of breathe it out. But I think that would be the two things I would say there. Other than that, I really liked how you drew in the future of IO and something you really cared about. So that was really nice. Good job. Thank you.
So, listen, and I had my invention from the last class was the Instaport. I would have been here on time. There was traffic and there was an accident, so everybody had to be a looky-loo. But anyway, we're gonna be talking about the future and how it kind of ties into IO psychology. So first I'll start with kind of like my background as far as my experience as a research assistant and how I was kind of the database and getting all of the information from different men and questionnaires, those things that you guys had to do in undergrad. I was behind those projects. Those were fun times. So we'll get into those as well as the everyday uses for technology and the automation potential. We'll get into both of those articles that we read today. I don't know why it numbered like that, but it's fine. And how we as IO psychologists can embrace the advancements of technology and automation. And lastly, we're going to touch on how the future of IO psychology is impacted. So first, as a research assistant, how it could have been improved. Well, as you see, there's an extensive list of surveys that we had to take, or we had to give. So it involves the demographics. So you had like 3-4 pages of this packet. Okay, well, spit in a tube for me. Okay, fill out the information that goes along with this tube. Okay, also, how do you feel in this moment in the last 12 days? And you had all these measures. So of course, people are just putting sure, 444, 333. We're going to make some designs and, figure out how that went. Also, upon completion, we had a team of maybe 4 individuals would enter this data into, I believe it was 3 or 4 databases. So all of those informations had to align. And I can't tell you how many times they didn't. So how could we have made this better? We could have actually benefited from some of the automations that are surfacing now as a result of the research that has been presented. So did anybody by chance go see Black Panther this weekend? So I saw it. So I had to go back. Fortunately, the movie theater around the corner from me was doing like a double feature. So they did Black Panther 1 and then followed by Black Panther 2. So I was like, all right, but never saw the first one. So I sat and watched it. And so this clip I chose because if anyone knows about Wakanda and everything, it talks about their technology that's unknown to anyone in this world, and they are the only ones that have this technology. Where we're seeing Princess Siri do this kind of medical analysis, but it's all based on her technology. She's not a surgeon, she has no medical expertise, but based on the technology, she's able to offer information and speed up the healing time, whatever. So this quote, I feel like was very important. It was from the first one and it wasn't this scene, but the Black Panther came and he was like commenting on his wardrobe. And he was like, it's fine, it works. And her response to him was like, just because it works doesn't mean that it can't be improved. So I thought that was a very important quote going into this weekend, how we're looking at technology and all of our automations. So we're going to talk now about how we kind of incorporate these. So by raise of hand, who has an Alexa or a Google Home situation? Good. I'm that person. I'm all about Alexa, turn my temp on. Alexa, I need you to run the vacuum cleaner. Alexa does it all. I have a whole routine for Alexa, and relying on these automations in our daily basis really provides a lot of information and tap to kind of how far we've come from childhood. So I don't know about anyone else, but I grew up in an era where we watched the Jetsons. So I didn't know that this cartoon was actually from like the 60s, but we watched this. But look at how many of these items are true to now, like who has an Apple Watch? We have FaceTime here up top, as well as virtual workouts on a flat screen TV and holograms. Like, how did we get here with these advancements? We didn't know in the 60s how much they would impact our lives and how much ease that they would portray or provide us. But now that we're able to see these even progressing into our work fields and our industries, we're able to utilize them and make further advancements in those particular industries. So the McKinsey and Company article spoke on how certain industries have the ability to be automated. Where we're seeing specifically on our industry, where it's healthcare and social assistance, there's not a lot that can be done, especially about the physical. But when we're looking at how much predictability or how much automation can be done in the parts that we are paid and we are specialized in, it's pretty vast. We focus a lot on the collected data as well as the process data and the predictable physical. So I thought that was pretty interesting. It's funny that this concept of the robots are going to take over and they're going to take all the jobs. And as the McKinsey brochure pointed out, this isn't actually the case. It actually enhances, and there's always going to be a need for the people to be properly trained to utilize those tools and to do the heavy lifting that maybe 3-4 people would have done for this one machine instead of in place of that machine. So I think that was very important. And I was embracing the future. I feel like this kind of spoke to how we can use these tools to influence the outcomes, where they're saying in the SIOP article how important it is that we're in the time now that we can design and create the things that we want to see in our workspaces and our work environment. So we do these through, as we do our consultants, where we're guiding and consulting leadership and letting them know the different ways in which are impacting their employees, as well as the training and development, providing the tools to the employees, whether that's the personal development, whether that's skill development, and also creating these tools and pathways that are able to be translated across different industries. So one can specialize in one area, but that doesn't limit them. They're able to grow and expand based on their needs. The impact within IO psychology and the power it holds. I thought it was important for the in the Tiana video where she talked about how we're going to be taking small pieces and going into this world of IO psychology. I thought that was really important to tie into the McKinsey, where they're not taking the whole occupation, they're taking the activity. So whereas it's a part and a component that are essentially making this overall picture work and to its best of its abilities. So that was my take. Thank you.
I loved all your references to popular media to make kind of examples more real for us, and connect the dots and show us that
We rely on a lot.
robots are probably not gonna take over. That quote that you used from Tim Lee or whatever the word was. This is actually the thing that I really pulled out of the article. It's we're still gonna need every erg of human labor.
Yeah, absolutely.
That made me feel so much better, in terms of what Jessica was sharing about, are robots gonna take over? I'm okay, wait.
No. Well, they're not that bad, I promise. Thank you.
Yeah, I like thinking back to when even I was a kid and thinking of technology back then, there were no flat screen TVs. I had one of those big TVs and VHS. I know working with teenagers, they don't even know what a VHS is.
No.
So it's super, yeah, it's just super cool to see even in the Jetsons, we have that stuff now. So just the way you talked about technology and bring media into it, whoa. Apple iPhones have been around for 11 or so years now. And even then, that was something super controversial when they first came out.
For sure.
But do you ever think of do you watch Black Mirror?
What is that?
It's this show, and it talks about, a lot of it focuses on technology in the future and how it could corrupt us, or the unintended consequences of technology advancement. So your presentation kind of reminded me of that.
I have to watch that now.
It's on Netflix. I don't really watch TV, but it was on Netflix when I was still like into TV.
That's so
I had a life. Right. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. The references were great. They really drove the point home. You can make direct comparisons about the things that are shared in movie and media and TV shows and how they actually get imagined and crafted into our current kind of daily routines. And whether it's through smart devices, as you were talking about personally for you, but even in the things we take for granted, like the ability to look up and watch a video on anything or stream a class live right now. YouTube wasn't around before 2005, right? That maybe it seems like a long time ago for many of you, but 2005, like that's when YouTube came out. Like that's crazy that it's a relatively young company and even a technology that was almost unimaginable to people of my age. I'm not putting you in that category. But
You're right there. I was like,
but-
oh, cool, that maybe happened.
right, it's just hard. It's hard to imagine a world that doesn't exist yet, and the technology that might exist, and what impact it'll have. Right, as like a futurist or something. But I think you made great comparisons because we can go backwards. Right, it's much easier to go backwards and to say, look at what the imagination was in the '60s. We have all that now, and except for the flying car. And the robot
And
that
then
actually
jetpacks.
like cooks and cleans and does
Yes.
everything. Rosie was like the dream, right?
Yes, I have the vacuum and mop, so that's sort of like,
Almost
it's a
there.
little help, I'm a baby step.
We're getting there. We're getting there. But I thought those are really great direct comparisons that really make it concrete, and I appreciated that. Great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alright, hey everyone, my name's Tia, and a good chunk of our reading this week was about automation and how it's kind of the future of IO. So today I'm gonna go ahead and recap one of the readings. I'll talk about a relevant, or what I hope is a relevant interview that I did recently. And then I'll kind of talk about some implications for clinical psych and how automation helps me, or I wish it would help me, in my role. So to start, Dr. Fuller and his colleagues summarized, and I will also summarize some of the key points about automation. They brought up the good point that it's kind of always been a thing, since the dawn of time. People have been using technology, whatever is available to them at the time, to make their jobs easier, more efficient, safer, et cetera. And so it's not really a new thing. They evidence the Industrial Revolution. But there is some worry that like robots are gonna steal your job. And so it's understandable, but I think it also comes from misinformation about what the role of automation would provide in human roles. And so I liked the point that like the goal is to focus on what tasks can be automated and not what entire jobs can be. So we're not trying to wipe out someone's entire role, but kind of leave the heavy lifting, in some cases, literally, to robots, while leaving humans the job of like creative problem solving, finding solutions and things like that, that no matter how hard we try, it's gonna be really hard to replicate with a computer. And so it kind of is our job to disseminate that information as IO psychologists in training. So $27 million is the number that Amazon spends in workers' compensation due to injuries. This is per month and in just one region. I also have it on good authority that this is a very conservative, modest number, so it's likely more than this. So each site is averaging about 3 recordable injuries per month. And there's so many sites in a region, and so you add all that up. I want to say per injury, it's about $85,000 for workers' comp. So it's very, very costly. And how do I know this number? I don't really know a lot about automation on a large scale like this, but I thought I would talk to someone who did. So I had the pleasure of interviewing the Health and Safety Regional Manager of Southern California. He also happens to be my husband, so that helps. But that's him. His name's Kelly, and he has a much better understanding of automation on a large scale for Amazon. So what he does a lot of like OSHA compliance stuff, and is really trying to cut down on injuries to make Amazon obviously a healthier, happier, safer place to work, but also to cut down on the costs related to workers' comp, like we saw. So I asked him about automation that he encounters in his role, and he talked about basically trying to eliminate the need for Amazon associates to interact with the physical product. So wherever they can use conveyance or robots to move and sort the product, they will. And so in that upper corner is just like one of the pictures I found of an Amazon facility. I feel like it's like Willy Wonka, like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I don't know all of what goes on behind closed doors, but it looks pretty cool from the outside. Every time he talks about the robots, I'm very fascinated. I asked about how it helped him. He said that the automation increases productivity, it decreases injuries significantly, and it reduces human error. The only downside he mentioned was that it is a high cost up front, but again, with $27 million each month per region, you make that money back really, really quickly in a matter of months. He also said that not everything that can be automated should be. And so he kind of echoed the reading in that where problem solving is required, they would rather have a trained human individual to do that job. And so literally taking the heavy lifting, giving that job to a robot and allowing humans to spend more time on things that require human problem solving. I asked about the future of automation in Amazon, and he said in the next 10 years, Amazon will likely be 75% fully self-driving delivery vehicles, which kind of blows my mind. It reminds me of like that Parks and Rec episode, if you know, where they're like the package is like just floating to their door. So I thought that was interesting. Again, from a more larger scale perspective, this is kind of how Amazon is impacting, or automation is impacting Amazon. And I think it is important to note that like they probably use more robots than anyone, but they're also like the second highest, they employ like the second highest number of people in like America or the world or something. So very clear from that example that the robots aren't stealing the jobs, right? There's a high number of both going into this. And lastly, I'll talk a little bit about how this applies to me as a hopeful soon-to-be clinical psychologist. I would want most of my role to go toward patient care and spending my time doing things that actively benefit my patients. And that's not always the case. So I'll talk about some of the things that are helpful to me and things that I wish I had access to. So something as simple as like appointment reminders, right? Like that's something a computer can do quite easily, whether it's like through email or some sort of text message. It seems small, but if I have to send a message to every single one of my clients on a weekly basis to remind them of their appointment, that can take a good chunk of time out of my life. And it's, as an intern, I'm not getting paid. This isn't time that I can be compensated for, really. I'm not getting paid, and I can't really like track those hours and get them counted for. So that's something that could easily be eliminated. The other thing is documentation. I think with most jobs, the paperwork is like the worst part. And so therapy is not really any different. You do your hour or 50-minute long session, and then you have a 10 to 15-minute note to write, which again seems small, but they pile up for sure. And so even things as simple as like voice to text, I'm really appreciative of. So that way I can make the more dull part of my job a little bit easier and more painless. I'm all about that. And then the last thing I thought I'd bring up is scoring psych tests. Take like the MMPI-3, for example, that's like a really common personality inventory. It's like 335 questions. It's long, it's a doozy. And most people are now administering it on the computer. So the participant will take it on the computer and then the computer scores it. My site right now that I'm at is a little bit stuck in the olden days. So we still hand score, and that's how I learned here at CBU. And basically there's like these, they're called transparencies. So they're like see-through pieces of plastic that you put over the bubble sheet, and you're counting up the individual marks that the participant made. And there's like 50 transparencies. And then you're taking those numbers as a raw score and you're converting it to a T-score. So as you can imagine, it's a very like time consuming activity. And there's also a lot for human error in an area that human error, like I really want to minimize, right? These are important things that we're doing. If I add wrong, I don't want that to be the difference between someone being diagnosed with something and not. So I would really appreciate it if my site had computer administered and scored psych tests. And I do see that as eventually everyone will, but for the time being, I have to be really careful about counting, which is not something I thought I would need to do. Yeah. All right, thank you guys so much for your time and look forward to feedback.
I'm just curious, why don't they do the MMPI on the computer? Like, is there a reason why they haven't transitioned? Do they think it's better in some way?
So I want to make sure I understand your question. Like, why
haven't they transitioned the MMPI or other psychological tests, your workplace or CBU over to automated?
So here at CBU, we have it. I think it comes down to like resources and finances. The site I'm at right now is a nonprofit, and so everything's kind of on the cheap a little bit. And so I just don't think they have like the funding to do that because it is expensive. The tests like cost money and you have to buy them. And eventually, I think it will be what they do, but for the time being.
So for the online version, you probably have to pay per test that you administer versus like the paper, you can just keep copying it.
Sure. Well, you can copy the. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you have to buy the. It's a lot, but you have to buy the graphs to like plot the points. But I guess you could copy the bubble sheet in the paper. If anyone's listening, like the copyright people, I'm sorry, that's not true. I forgot this is on YouTube.
We're not holding
Definitely
you to
don't do
it.
that. It's probably illegal. I wouldn't put it past my site. So yeah,
Your reminder calls not automated?
they are now. My site just switched to that, yeah. But before I was spending, 20, 30 minutes and then someone will get the email or the message and they'll say like, okay, I need to call her. And then we talk on the phone for a little bit. And it's like, it's not that I don't want to talk to them, but it's just that thing could have been addressed in our appointment and it's time consuming. It adds up.
Yeah, I really enjoyed you bringing in your husband's perspective
Thanks.
into the presentation. And, I kind of remember when Annette did something similar with her hiking
Yes, I love that one.
presentation. She
Mhm.
reached out to, kind of experts, if you will. Like, it had a similar effect where, I just was that much more engaged because I was like, wow, this person really reached out to someone who, is a leading voice or has an informed opinion on what you're presenting on it. So I thought that was really well done. And his insights were just very relevant, and really intriguing to hear. And I thought you connected the dots really well into the presentation of the topic, So that was neat.
Thank you. As Dr. Fuller would say, Picasso that idea for sure. Because I really liked it too last time.
I've never said that before, but I will now.
What? Yeah, you did.
Well, to Picasso, I didn't make his name a verb, but I like
I
it,
did that.
and I want to do that now.
But you can Picasso that.
I want to Picasso that. I agree with Kevin. I loved your husband's perspective on it. I didn't know who he was, and I thought, wow, you reached out. Like, that's amazing. What initiative you had there. Still showed the same initiative. You just happened to be a convenient person to reach out to. He was just a captive audience. You know where he lives. But you did, and I really appreciated that you took the time to ask insightful questions and get great answers about what it is like. And I love that you put it into a number, that you gave us this really big, important numbers, like $27 million per region per month. That's unfathomable at scale, right? Like, it just seems insane how much cost there is to something like that. And then it makes me wonder about other organizations. Obviously, Amazon has a large scale, but you think about any type of shipping, transportation, delivery service of any kind. What about like the food industry, like DoorDash or Grubhub or any of that? Like, people could get hurt there. Are they not covered by anything? Like, if you slip and fall because you're delivering food to someone, like this, I don't know. Are you covered or are you not covered? Is there insurance for that? What if you get in a car accident? What, like, it just like keeps growing in terms of how much automation reduces not only error, but a lot of the costs associated with tasks that I don't associate with danger, but have an element of risk, right, involved. Driving is one of the riskiest things that we do, give or take. I don't know what your lives are like, but I'm assuming.
You got people going haunted houses over here.
Right, the haunted houses haircutting thing still freaks me out. But it is one of the more dangerous things that we do, and it's something that we've now hired out in terms of our groceries and our ordering of food, and also ordering of almost any product we can imagine, right? All these things are now serviceable to us, but someone else is now taking on that burden of cost in the liability of that injury.
Well, yeah, and I didn't know this at first, but the delivery drivers aren't even Amazon employees. They're like contracted.
Wow.
So, because of, how insane the injury
Because
is.
of the liability.
Yeah,
Sure.
exactly. And probably why they're moving toward self-driving vehicles, because.
Yeah, it's gotta be so dangerous.
Yeah.
Thank you for those great insights. Your presentation was of course wonderful. I think you gave really great juxtaposition of like expert opinion on automation and then this eye-opening like clinical perspective of here's what it's like clinically. We still have room to grow in this area, but there's opportunity there where I didn't know that kind of stuff. I know what the MMPI is and I talk about it in my classes, but and that we can't use it, right? We're not allowed to use it. Like you're licensed or I don't know what the approval term is.
I'm supervised by someone who's licensed.
Okay, you're supervised by someone who's licensed now, but you've been trained in it. It's not like you can even like we can't just give it, right? Like it's not allowed to do. Like in other jobs where we're talking about other classes that we have, we're trying to like assess and get the information of people. And so companies will give like assessments as you apply for jobs. They give you like paper and pencil or online questions to fill out, but we can't do things like that. We can't do the MMPI. We can't do any personality assessment that's diagnosable, right? We can't do diagnosable stuff because then we've ventured into an area that we can't do. So I appreciate that you can and you can talk about it because it's something that we're not familiar with, but for good reason. We're not supposed to be. Thank you for opening our eyes to a new world there.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Well, hello, everyone. As we have discussed here tonight, the shift towards automated workplaces is unlikely to slow down anytime soon. For example, a 2020 Deloitte report had found that the global market for automated technologies has an annual growth rate of 40.6% a year. So what I really like about this report is that it's telling me what is currently happening in the workplace, but also the role that automation has played in it. For example, during the pandemic, a lot of companies were struggling, right? But for the few companies that didn't struggle as much, this report has stated that 2/3 of those companies actually used automated technologies to help cope with the challenges faced in the pandemic. So I would argue that for companies, the question is no longer whether to look towards automation, but rather how to implement it and how to prepare their employees for the future of the workplace. So now that we discussed the current workplace and how automation has played a role in it, let's look at what automation is. So workplace automation in simple terms is the uses of systems to perform predictable or repetitive tasks without direct human inputs. Automation can also be applied to physical tasks by using machineries or robots. And it can also be data-driven processes by using softwares and algorithms. So now that we understand what automation is in the workplace, let's look at the impact of automation in the workplace. So perhaps no other study has generated more panic about AI destroying our jobs than the 2013 Oxford Study University. They had estimated that 47% of US jobs will be eliminated by technology over the next 20 years. But this study only assess the technology capabilities. It did not attempt to actually estimate the extent and the pace of automation or the effect on employment. So perhaps people's belief that half of the workforce will be affected by automation comes from not really comprehending how they will be affected by automation, which is why I really like the McKinsey and Company study, because they kind of looked at the real impact of automation. They saw that rather than focus jobs will be automated, they look at which tasks can be automated. So for example, 60% of all occupations have at least 30% of activities that are technically auditable. So now that we understand the impact of automation in the workplace, let's look at some of the tasks that can be automated. So in Dr. Fuller article, they talk about repetitive tasks, and those are most likely to be automated because they are they don't change much over time and they remain the same within the variety of work contexts and processes. The one routine. So for example, if you have a human resources employee, a lot of their tasks include timesheets and payrolls, and a lot of those tasks can be automated by using algorithms and softwares. So now that we understand which tasks can be automated, let's look at which tasks are less likely to be automated. So variable tasks are less likely to be automated because they are unpredictable and require adaptive criteria and decision rules. For example, if you have a high school counselor that's working with a struggling student, the counselor requires a deeper cognitive activity and creative thinking, which makes it less likely for this task to be automated. So now that we understand which tasks can be automated and which tasks are less likely to be automated, let's look at why people and organizations need reskilling and training so that they can prepare themselves for the future workplace. So as automation kind of takes over certain tasks and shifts the types of roles of jobs and demands, it's important that employees receive reskilling and training so that they can thrive in this new workplace environment for the future. So for example, McKinsey and Company predict that the demand for basic literacy and numeracy skills will fall by 20% in the next decade, while technological skills will rise by 50%. So now that we understand the need for reskilling and training, let's look at an example of a company who has really implemented automation and prepared their employees for the future workplace. So like Teal said, Amazon does a great job of doing this. They had currently just launched their Upskilling 2025 initiative as part of their commitment to their employees to prepare them for a more digitalized workplace in the future. One of the programs offered in this initiative is called it's called Mechatronics, I think, Robotics Apprenticeship Program. And it's a two-phase program where employees attend classes, and then second phase is that they receive the on-job preparation for work as mechatronics or robotic technicians in the field. So once they actually complete this program, they can actually earn more money and secure a better career opportunity in the future. So to conclude, we're very fortunate to be part of a graduate program that's helping us build our skill sets for more career opportunities in the future. But a lot of people outside of this classroom don't have that opportunity all the time. So I urge us as future Iowa psychologists to kind of reach out to these people in these situations and give them to companies like Amazon that can help them build new skills for the future of the workplace. Thank you very much.
I thought that was a super powerful conclusion, that hit me in the heart. And I would say in general, your transitions between each slide were so well done and rehearsed, and you could tell you put a lot of thought on what you actually wanted to say each slide. So it was super professional.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I want to add, it's really, I love how you kind of you do it verbally very well, but you transition us through thought by thought. And I mean this in the very best way. It's like a corporate training, because you remind us, you're now that we've learned this, we're going to go on to this. Now that those sort of repetitive reminders of what we learned honestly are so helpful. So that we'd be oh yeah, we just learned that. And I really love that you do that. I can tell that you put a lot of time and care and consideration, and it honestly it helps me capture even more from your presentation.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're quite the eloquent speaker.
Thank you.
Very good. Yeah, it's impressive the way that you take the material, you've memorized it, so you're not looking at the screen, you're looking at us, which is very engaging. And then you'll say it verbatim, you'll say it so clearly and so cleanly as you're saying it. I mean, there might be stumbles here and there, but the interesting thing is, as much as we don't like the the uhs, the so's, like those helper words. Some of the research in terms of sales, not in terms of like grading or anything, but in terms of like sales calls that people make, it doesn't matter. It didn't matter at all in terms of the speaker trying to sell someone something on the other end of the phone. It didn't matter if they had any type of verbal missteps like that, any type of tics or anything. I was surprised by that. And so I've had less of a focus on that this semester because that was something I learned at the beginning of the semester, which I thought was at least helpful for me. Like maybe it doesn't matter. It can be distracting, but it might not matter because for you, the presentation was so powerful because you gave us information and then you told us we learned it, which part of me is like, well, I didn't really learn that, but you told me I did, so I believe you, and I'm just gonna keep moving on with you. But it helped me have the feeling of learning things, which is different than the actual learning things. So the feeling of learning things feels really good. It's like watching a TED Talk and you feel like, I just learned so much, and then you like take a quiz and you're like, I learned nothing, but you felt like you learned a lot and it felt really good, and so that was really good here too. I'm not saying you didn't teach us anything, you very much did, but you also made us feel like we learned a lot as well, which is great. Like definitely manipulate your audience as much as you can. I'm all for it. I think it was delightful, and it's done in such a professional way. I think you are a very gifted speaker in that. It was well done, really well done. Thank you.
So thank you, Carla, for the perfect segue to my presentation. Today, I just want to get into and take a look at upskilling and data literacy in the Latine workforce.
You guys like exchange notes.
Yeah, we had a strategic meeting, so. So I just wanted to provide, these are some of the, I guess, the key insights that I found from the reading that we all took a look at this week. And clearly automation is the future of work. And so obviously the article spoke about how COVID has accelerated this process. Something that I really appreciated was that it's tasks that are being automated, not jobs. And I found this, I thought it was interesting because I thought it was a very sort of equitable thing, you know. It gave me hope that instead of certain sectors or certain individuals and jobs, it's tasks. And it even noted, like for CEOs, some of their job tasks will be automated. And again, for me, as I take a look at equity and the future of work, that was something that kind of sparked some hope for me personally. So one of the questions that came to mind as I was looking at the readings is, are we prepared for the future of work? And from the reading, what I gathered is a resounding no. Currently, we know that there's great skill gaps, and then in the future, that's only going to pick up even further. And so when we look at the VUCA environment that we're operating in and that we're going to continue to operate in, we need to join, and I argue we need to lead the, as they call it, the reskill revolution. And so to me, that means that we need to become change management experts, navigators, and storytellers. So some of us have spoken about upskilling. Just to define it real quickly, it's a process of learning new skills and competencies for the future of work. And I like this cartoon at the top there. It says, what if we don't change at all and something magical just happens? I feel like that's kind of where the workplace has been for quite some time, but with diverse representation and us as IO leaders, we're looking to make some change, and it has to be intentional. And part of that is technology and Latino representation in tech. So when I thought about, for all of us, why should we care about upskilling? So some things that really stood out to me from the World Economic Forum is that they call this really they say that it's a solution to this pressing societal problem. So I thought that was really profound. It's not just, I mean, obviously as IO professionals, we care about the future of work, but really they just argue it makes a huge impact on everybody. And so I included some metrics about some economic impacts of, upskilling and the need to develop those new skills. But again, I'm interested in the tie-in to equity and upskilling. So for example, sectors that employ higher rates of women and BIPOC, this is an area where we can make meaningful change and cover some of that ground by being intentional about upskilling and developing new skills and competencies. And this quote, to me, I really enjoyed because it says, jobs will require more creativity, innovation, and empathy as we need new tech skills. And that stood out to me because it's almost counterintuitive. Initially, when I did the readings this week, I was telling Kirsten it didn't really do much for me because I'm like, automation doesn't excite me so much. But for the World Economic Forum to kind of acknowledge that there's going to be a rise for empathetic jobs due to automation, I thought that was really cool. And I think that, I want to be a part of that. So here are just, again, some overview stats on kind of just a temperature check on where the need is and how great it is. 63% of organizations feel like their managers are not equipped for upskilling. Many CEOs are worried about the lack of skills. And by 2025, 44% of employees will need new skills. And so, again, when I look at the crossover of upskilling and equity, I think that is on us as IO leaders to be very strategic and bold to kind of lead the way when it comes to upskilling among diverse populations. For me, I'm specifically interested in the Latina workforce. And again, here are some stats as we've talked about in many classes. Only 3% of roles in tech are women of color. So this was something that was in one of the readings that I did, and it stood out to me. I just thought it was a really cool, brief kind of case study. So Rosany is a Latina at AT&T, and she started off as a wire technician, and just in a super brief amount of time, she utilized an upskilling course in something that they called a nano degree program through AT&T. And within 6 months' time, she was promoted to an engineering management position. And I just thought it was a cool story. So I Googled her and I saw her on LinkedIn and I sent her an invitation to connect with me on LinkedIn. But again, it's good to see world examples of how companies are already investing in this initiative. And so finally, our part as IO leaders, if I were to summarize it, is that I would call us to be both data and equity literacy advocates. Again, I would love for us to be on the cutting edge as IO leaders to be having these conversations. I think we can use our data insights and we can advise organizations, like many of us have talked about, on what it means to actually financially invest in Latina upskilling and training, and then what those repercussions will be down the line. And I also think that in the field of education and learning and training, we should promote the connections around DEI specifically and upskilling, because I think when we think of upskilling, we don't always necessarily see that correlation, but it's there, and I think it's something that we can continue the conversation about. Thank you.
appreciate your perspective on, you know, Latinos and people of Latin descent, because everything that you have said will most definitely affect people of color more than anybody else. When you go to Walmart and you have a job as a cashier, well, now you don't, because your job is a task and your task is being replaced, essentially, right? And so a lot of people who are like blue collar workers who happen to be minorities and are the ones that are going to be mostly affected by these changes. And I know corporations are gonna save a lot of money. However, some people are going to be out of a livelihood, they're gonna be out of resources for their families, and people have to pivot. And so thank you for the perspective on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
I really enjoyed, yeah, like your perspective, but I like your presentation overall, like the format, even just like the first page, the little details, like your name and the IN being like LinkedIn, and then like you talked about Latin, like the papel, I don't know what it's called.
Papel picado.
Yeah, papel picado, like it was just like very detailed, and it showed that you put a lot of thought into it, and I really appreciated that, like just like embracing our culture, like it's really cool and seeing it in like a graduate setting, like I don't know, it's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, it was really neat to see you take like a subtopic of the broader topic, which was upskilling, right? The subtopic, and then you kind of went your own way with that, did your own independent research on the subtopic, you know, and so now upskilling was the theme, and you had all this incredible research and insights and stats, relevant case studies, and presented it in such a well curated way. It was like really well done, Alina. And I think the only feedback maybe to just take that to another level would be a bit more command of the room, or like eye contact with the room as you're presenting it. Because the presentation was phenomenal, and I think your communication is phenomenal. You're very articulate. But maybe a little more eye contact and engagement with the audience would just elevate it to like that next level. But it was really fun to see you present on this.
Thank you. I hear that, and I totally I resonate with that. I need to do. I feel like I was off my game, but it's okay. Like this is the environment
I
to
don't
do
think you're off
that.
your game at all. I'm saying this would just take your game to a whole nother level.
I'm gonna challenge myself to be more in the superwoman stance. Pull some from some Carla and amazing people that present. But thank you.
I really appreciated it. It was really great content. I love that you went out and sought out some of your own material information, right? That's great. That's what we should do every week. I think along with just some recommendations, because it was a solid presentation, really dense, just tons of like information, every slide, lots of information, really good information. For a group like this, probably pretty good, because we're paying attention, we're trying to hang on every word, we're taking it in, right? Something that helps us, because when you're trying to deliver information, there are two different goals that you have, kind of back of the mind kind of goals. One is the delivery of the content. You got that, right? You definitely have the content delivery well done, like you got it down. The other would be like that kind of elevator takeaway anecdotal phrase, like just something really easy, right? Like that you can say, when I say elevator, I mean like something you would say to someone else if we had to go from one place to another and we all just heard this presentation, something we would now talk about. Like, oh, can you imagine? So the $27 million like Amazon thing, that's the elevator. That's the thing. That's the thing that we get, the candy, right? That we get to take with us, that we easily and happily want to share with other people. Like it'll be something that I share with other people throughout the week, like $27 million, like that. That's a great little thing to hold on to, and it's tangible. It's something for you and yours. I think the story, I forget her name, but the LinkedIn woman that upscaled with a nano degree from Udacity. that story. I don't know what the story is. I want to know that story, right? Like, so I think there's opportunity there to modify the presentation slightly in a way that you allocate some time for that to give us that thing that we can hold on to. Say, I heard this crazy story where this woman at AT&T started in this entry-level position, and after 6 months of whatever nano degree, which I'm still not entirely clear on, but that's fine, was able to be promoted or find a new position within the company at a much higher level. But that doesn't, like, I got that information, but it's not the story, right? You know what I mean? Like, that's not something I tell in the elevator. But it's close. It's right there. Like, so close to just being something you easily, freely share with other people. And I think that would make the presentation so much more memorable and transcend, like, from a great presentation to now something that's going to affect our lives. And that's what I see for you. Like, that's the power with which you speak, right? You can affect people's lives. And I think that's amazing. So I love the passion you have. I love the dedication you have. The level of detail in your presentation is amazing. All the, like, little references and nuances you have, I think, is incredible. So just try and keep in mind that you're trying to tell a story. As you said in your own presentation, we're storytellers.
Damn, I have to be a better storyteller, but
No,
I'm sorry.
you got it. It's
No,
in there.
I totally
It's in
hear you.
there.
I feel like a leaderboard, like something has to be a priority, like something has to move to the top and kind of stand out.
Yeah.
So totally,
But just the way that you present, I forget her name, I'm sorry, but just to say, like, here's so-and-so, and just talk us through the story. Take like 2 minutes maybe to, like, really walk us down and make it personal. Make it like, imagine her here, and then she does this, and show us, right, what that looks like to do this thing. And then she gets this interview, like, tell the story from, like, the first person kind of perspective, or, like, really in that moment. And I think you would nail it. Thank you. So good. Thank you.
I'm trying to figure out how to prop that up without. Okay, hi everyone. I'm Delore again, and like everyone else, talking about the future of IO. I was expecting a lot of robot talk today, so I kind of was trying to find something other than automation, robots, ended up going right back to it, and kind of found a middle ground. And honestly, with Dr. Fuller's intro earlier about top 10 trends, I almost pulled out of presenting because that's exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, so if anyone is familiar with the top 10, that's what we're gonna go into. I'll do a little brief overview of recent years, talk about or compare them to 22's trends, and then kind of have a little prediction on what's to come next in a couple months, and then end with some takeaways. Okay, so SIOP has actually been publishing these top 10 work trends since 2014, and they do it on a yearly basis, comes out pretty much in January every year. And if you guys don't know how to navigate to it, it's on the main website there. You just go to the business resources tab, which is literally here, and it's the first one right here. Originally in 2014, they were only getting like 700 respondents per list, but now I believe last year it said that they were sending it out to like 7,000 SIOP members. So obviously the sample size is growing. But yeah, and then every year they have the quarterly updates on those current trends too. So right now they only have up to date like the Q3 trends for all 22's top 10, but it's pretty cool to kind of keep up with the latest updates as they're happening in real life. And then fair warning here, my next couple of slides go over the top 10, so it's gonna be wordy, but I did highlight the colors that I actually want you to look at. So DEI is highlighted both on 2018 and 2019 because they have a commonality with 22's top 10 list, which I'm gonna show in a second. But obviously there was a lot of AI, automation, machine, a lot of tech heavy content here within their top 10s. And then going into 2020,
same thing, lots of tech savvy trends here. DEI is still up there. Health and well-being is made the list. And then keep in mind, these are posted in January. So what else happened in 2020 in spring? The world shut down. So 2021, it's no surprise that there's a big shift to remote work, virtual teams, pretty much navigating that whole thing. And then health and well-being shoots to the top of the list because everybody's health and well-being plummeted. So that's at the top of the list now. And of course, DEI is still super relevant. And that brings us to 2022. These are our top 10 for 2022. I still have them colored because it kind of groups them up. We do have a huge, no surprise that there's a huge attention to the post-pandemic remote environment. So there's 3 of them out of those top 10 here. Another big one, again, employee well-being, stress, burnout, pretty much just employee health, also holds 3 of those 10 slots. And then DEI, still super relevant, but we are starting to notice a shift in the message within DEI initiatives, which I'll talk about in a second as well. And then the 2 other ones, it would be the Great Resignation and talent attraction and retention. So if anyone's heard of the latest quiet quitting, people acting their wage, those would kind of fall into those 2 categories. Have you not heard that? Act your wage? Yeah, that's on like TikTok and everything now. I don't even have TikTok. But basically, instead of going above and beyond your job description, you act your wage and don't do those things until you get paid for it. But has its pros and cons. But those are our top 10 right now. So what is next? 2023 is right around the corner, literally like 2 months away, and then you guys will be able to see the new top 10 trends that are predicted. So I kind of compiled a few main topics that aren't going to be going anywhere based off of PsyOps data, and then also just a couple other sources. Of course, that would be remote work, definitely not going anywhere. I found a study that said that 74% of US companies are already doing or already have tried to implement or planning to implement a permanent hybrid model. And then I estimated also by 2028 that 73% of all departments within an organization would have some sort of remote or hybrid role. Similar to that, or what that means for us in IO, navigating through remote work and those environments is going to be crucial. It's not going to be this new thing. It's pretty much just going to be a norm. So familiarizing yourself with that would be key. Along with that, well-being. So another study found, Deloitte actually did this one, found that nearly 70% of executives, it was in the US, UK, Canada, and Australia, would consider leaving their current roles for another one that takes better care of their well-being. So there's a lot of drive around the employers having to figure out what they can bring to the table for an employee's well-being and making sure that it's up to par. Similar with that, DEI is not going anywhere. Instead of in more so, I guess more the past and more recent DEI initiatives focus more on meeting targets and meeting numbers. But now there's a bigger push for it trying to incorporate DEI into business strategy and values. One last study that I found described that job seekers prefer when an employer describes their diversity as a value rather than trying to justify the presence of diversity in their companies. So that's a really key thing to keep up to date with. 2 other things, had to bring the robots in, automation and AI, obviously not going anywhere, getting bigger and bigger as the days pass. So either get on the train or try to fight it. I'd recommend trying to get on the train. But so the biggest thing we can do is prepare the workforce accordingly. All these developments that are coming up, if we can prepare everybody for them and then help them navigate their own individual careers, then you can proactively try to reshape the workforce adaptively. And along with that, the only thing that is consistent is change. So to instill organizational agility and adaptivity within these VUCA environments, which we talked about in Iverson's class, and Alina just mentioned right now, adapting agility would be super beneficial, and navigating through all of that using agility to navigate through that would be something that could set your organization apart from others. Another thing to highlight is
it's important when if you're gonna start instilling agility through like initiatives or the organizational structure, to do it from a holistic standpoint. Because if you do it within one department, it's just gonna create frustration as to departments within an organization not being all on the same page of like their agility-ness. And some takeaways from all that, I did give you a little recap of the IO trends, so if you wanna find more detail, you guys can go and look on the website yourselves as well. But just keep an eye out for the SIOP 2023 coming in a couple months. And I would also suggest just kind of reading the little brief overviews that they have on these trends, because for me, I'm still trying to figure out what my niche is gonna be, but kind of exploring this allowed me to put myself in the shoes of those experts in each category to kind of see if I see myself in those, if I think that's interesting. And then tying from the agility point that I had, it would be super beneficial for all of us as individuals to try to instill that agility within ourselves too, because once again, the only thing constant is change. So if we can also be agile, we can kind of navigate the future of IO confidently. Thank you. Yes, Jency.
I think it was also that you used the PSYOP trends that was like, and showing like every year how it changed, but also stayed relevant and being able to predict from other sources like what's coming up. Super original.
I'm really glad that you did present today and that you didn't just leave Dr. Fuller's short summary. That was super helpful, and I understand like way more kind of how the trends have shifted now and like how to help each of those trends. Yeah, and I didn't feel like you were like repeating what he said at all.
I was more scared that it was gonna be the exact opposite of what he said.
Oh.
Because he was like, the trends are still the same, and my whole thing was, where's AI? Like, it's not on there. What? But thank you, that's reassuring. I believe you. You will. I think it's your turn now.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I was so glad you did. Like the trends, they fluctuate a lot, right? In terms of what's popular. So in 2018, sexual harassment was number one, right? That was the height of the Me Too movement. And so you had that on there. You have these like big social movements, social justice, right? In 2021, George Floyd, and like these issues are so prominent in the workplace, and so we carry them into this survey that's being conducted for PSYOP. I mean, I've taken the survey 5 years now. It's interesting to see what we think will be affecting the world of work. And I love the strategy you had in that you look at it from the lens of what is going to be my niche? Where am I going to go in this? What's fallen out of prominence? And is it going to cycle back, right? Is it just not in the social narrative right now? Or has it really disappeared as an industry experience? Like, is it just gone now? Have we solved DEI or something, right? Like, not yet. No, not even. What do I mean, not yet? Not even close. We're nowhere near it. So I appreciate that. I thought that was really good. I also love that you pulled in a lot of extra like data sources and information, other articles, and you cited them, and that's really nice to have to see. And you color coded like different things, like pulling themes out over the years. Like DEI has been there like from the beginning, or from 2018, like as far back that you went there. And then when things shifted to the pandemic, like that was the focus, and now there's all this burnout, resignation, and challenging of different lived experiences of the workforce. So I think you did a great job summarizing that. I still think like AI and automation aren't gone. Like it may not be on the forefront of trends in PSYOP, but if you look at their if you look at like what actually is going to be presented at PSYOP, or if you're going, there will be plenty of talks, right, on AI. I don't know if anyone here would think like, yeah, AI is kind of done with. We're not doing that anymore. It's not gonna happen. Like, I don't know if anyone's in that boat.
I think it's more so it's just embedded within everything.
Exactly. It's just
So
part of
it's like, it's lost its own bullet point. It's just
Exactly.
the backbone
exactly.
of
It's
everything.
pervaded all areas, and so now it's more of like, how will AI work in DEI? Like, how will AI be a part of that process? So yeah, it's certainly still there. But,
It just wasn't on the list.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'll talk about that.
yeah, I think it's certainly fine to point that out. I'm curious. I am really curious about 2023. Like what we think. I wish there were like, I almost wanted to play a game in the sense of like listing out 30 things that have been there over the last few years, and maybe some things that we anticipate on the horizon, and see how close we can get in 2023. I'm guessing we will be way off, but maybe we'll be on. I don't know. I'm not sure, but I'm assuming AI will be back on there in some form of explicit, like, okay, we still have to,
It'll get its own number again.
yeah, figure it out again.
The top 5, all tech.
Maybe, right? I mean, they were prominent, right, in years past, so I'm guessing they'll cycle back through. So, thank you. Good job.
Okay, start. Hello, everyone. How are you?
Good.
Good. So today I am going to present on redefining the meaning of professionalism in the workplace. So I just want to start off with a question. How many of you have tattoos? How many of you have visible tattoos? Okay, so in the workplace, tattoos are generally looked frowned upon. And when we define the word professionalism, it is the competence or skill expected by a professional. But there are also 6 traits of professionalism, which is character, attitude, engagement, competency and vocational skills, image, and continuous improvement. So I ask you guys this question because, as you all know, I have a lot of tattoos. I'm really passionate about inclusivity and belongingness in the workplace. I do want to pursue DEI as a profession, but something that I have noticed just like as a tattooed person is like there's not a lot of like professional people with tattoos or like visible tattoos. And it always just makes me think like, oh, like will that be a problem for me? And just like about me, I started college as a sports broadcasting major. I wanted to be a reporter really bad. And then I got my nose bit off by a dog and I kind of just reevaluated my life values. I was like, okay. I pursued professional piercing for a while, but professional piercing doesn't have HR. So it is all like apprenticing, and it's very, very racist in the sense that it is a very white-sphered profession to go in, and it's white-sphered and male-sphered. So it was just something that I was like, okay, well, you know, this is something I enjoy getting done or like enjoy doing in my free time, but something that I wouldn't want to pursue. So when we look at people with tattoos, in 1936, 10% of people were tattooed. By 2019, 30% of people in the United States are tattooed. So when we look in the workplace, I got all of my stats from an article that talked about body modification by E.M.C. Huang. 20% of the employees stated that visible tattoos would be a top reason for them not to employ or not to promote somebody in the workplace. And it just made me think like, okay, that's kind of really disheartening as someone with a lot of tattoos. And the reason I chose this topic was because I just went viral on TikTok. So I have my face tattooed and I had an interview with a company, but I covered my face tattoo and with makeup, and it went viral. Like I got over 200,000 views, over like 40,000 likes, something like that. And it just made me think like how many people have to go to work every day and cover their tattoos? I know like most people don't have face tattoos, but most people have some visible tattoos or hand tattoos. And hand tattoos and face tattoos are defined as job stoppers because most people in the professional world, that's where it's like, okay, it ends for you there. So I thought of the cultural significance of tattoos. So in most cultures, it's seen as a rite of passage. We see this a lot in Polynesian cultures, Maori cultures. So when you gain womanhood in Maori cultures, they have a chin tattoo that is actually visible. A lot of people in the United States see it as healing trauma. So a big one that was going around a few years ago was getting the semicolon for suicide awareness. And culturally, 23% of women compared to 19% of men are tattooed. And this is an example of Orini Kaipera. She is a broadcaster in New Zealand, and she has her traditional Maori tattoo. And I believe she got it in 2019, but when she had first revealed it on air, people thought it was super controversial, but she had explained, like, you know, this is a part of my culture, and she displays it at work. She's a reporter, so she's on TV. But we see this, and just like if you were to see her in person, if you didn't know anything about her culturally, you'd probably think like, oh my gosh, why would somebody get their face tattooed? You know, but for her, it has cultural significance. So why does this matter? Professionalism does exclude people. So other than tattoos, big topics in DEI were or have been like Black women in their hair. And I know that that was one of the last projects I worked on when I was still with my company. But it's like, okay, there's a really big focus on Black women with their hair, but then I don't know if this is for all industries, but like my industry, there would be other people with like pink hair or fashion colored hair, but they would be respected in the workplace. Whereas if I had braids or wore my hair curly like this, it could be seen as unprofessional. And just some bigger thoughts when I think of redefining professionalism in the workplace, I think of implicit biases and being our true authentic self, kind of like what Delore talked about with values. Like if we're really preaching DEI, how are we gonna make it a value? Because not everybody comes to work and gets to be their true authentic self. A lot of people feel like they have to code switch or mask who they are. And just a deep dive on culture, like what is your culture? And do you fit any subculture? So like for me, like I'm a biracial Black woman, but I also fit into the subculture of like being heavily tattooed in the alternative scene. That's something that is a part of me and that I'm super passionate about. And defining professionalism and what an inclusive workplace would look like for you. I just think that when we think of inclusivity in the workplace, especially with like the death of George Floyd, that is something that's super big. But we also have to think about accessibility in the workforce with people who might not be able-bodied and have to have wheelchairs and things like that. So there's much more of like a deeper dive on just what inclusivity in the workplace means. Thank you.
I appreciate the introduction, like seeing her art and having to, like you say, every day, like cover it, knowing that it's a part of her culture, and then having to explain it. It's kind of, it's almost like kind of a slap in the face, like why do I have to explain my ritual? But if you must know, this is part of my culture, and kind of give you a little insight to it. I thought that was really important and nice to see. Like I've never seen her, so that's pretty cool.
Thank you for your perspective again. I used to manage a pizza restaurant, and the manager had to wear a sleeve because he had tattoos. And I was like, we're only selling pizza. I mean, who cares? Doesn't affect the taste of the pizza, doesn't affect the quality of the pizza. I mean, a lot of things that we tend to focus on in the name of professionalism doesn't have anything to do with the job or your role or your responsibility. But because there's this box, a small box that doesn't include a lot of people that we all have to fit into, it makes it so hard to like wear my natural hair, for example. So thank you for
bringing that perspective.
Thank you.
I could remember the experience you were sharing, like you have faced that when I remember my mom and her sister just saw the tattoo and they just told, you won't be allowed to do the work in office next time onwards because you're just having the tattoo. Your career is not going ahead because you're just having the tattoo in your hands and everything. So they're going to reject you for sure. So I just got to remember those things. But I think slowly, gradually, I move ahead in professional. Let's see that how they are going to accept me.
Thank you. Alina?
I just wanted to say, I think that like a beautiful thing about true like diversity is just the different like ideas and the creativity, because I think similarly, like when I see a topic and I'm like, okay, this is the topic for the week, but like, how can I push that like any different direction? And as soon as I saw it, I was like, okay, so she's making a case for the future, defining professionalism in a broader scope and bringing equity to that. So I just love that that's always your perspective, and I feel like that in and of itself sets you apart and makes you somebody that like, I would want to like have conversations with this stuff about. And then it also made me smile because the CEO of an organization that I've talked so much about, the Riverside Area Rape Crisis Center, she has 2 visible tattoos on her wrists. And we did this whole like fundraising campaign to support survivors of sexual assault. And it was cool because we did this video talking about how like survivors get tattoos to reclaim their body. And so there's this whole campaign on like no means no. A lot of survivors get tattoos on like the place where somebody first, touched them when they were victimized. And so it's just cool to see things kind of go 360 and having those conversations that it's like, we're reclaiming our power. And we're having conversations inside of organizations saying that we want people to be empowered. We want them to be, self-led. But then when they go to empower themselves, they're punished. And so I just think it's beautiful that like you're pushing that forward in the workplace. Thank you.
Those are great points. I really appreciated that. And the way that you framed like body representation, right? Or an authentic representation of the self in the workplace, whether it's with, and I like how you expanded it beyond tattoos, because that does certainly fit within a certain percentage of the population. But you could easily extend that to any way that you want to represent yourself. Say with piercings or with hair, certainly with clothing and fashion, all of that is some type of communication. It's all communication and how you're trying to broadcast. Right? So I appreciate the framing of this is what it looks like in our modern era, where that communication is done so sometimes through permanent modification of your body. Tattoos, something like that. Historically, maybe there was more space for that in different areas, right? Like you could represent yourself through your hair style or fashion. You could still do those things, but maybe that was more prominent and socially acceptable, right? And now it's becoming, not there yet, and I appreciate your presentation on this, it's becoming more socially acceptable to have some tattoos, maybe visible, maybe not, it just depends on maybe the organization, maybe not pizza places yet, but we're working on it. But there are several faculty here that are tattooed that I'm surprised by, not that they're tattooed, but that they show them prominently, and I'm like, that's great. I think that's amazing. But that also that there aren't more, because it's so different. And I think what I was looking for and interested in part of your presentation was the breakdown of the difference over time. So there was like 10% back in the 50s, I think.
The 30s.
30s, okay. So that number has dramatically increased to maybe a third of the population, or 30% has some type of tattoo. And I'm really curious as to what the demographic breakdown is, because it seems like, and I could be wrong here, but it seems like younger people have more acceptance and embracing of tattoos.
Yeah, even in the military too. I know the Navy is the most accepted, like they accept tattoos the most. They're about like 1 hand tattoo now, I believe. Whereas before, it's like before you enlisted, if you had a visible tattoo, they would make you remove it. And most of them would pay for them to remove your tattoos. Yeah. And then my sister, she's a veteran, but when she had her ears stretched, they paid for her whole surgery before they sent her out for boot camp. Yeah.
Interesting. So I think it's an important conversation about what it means to be able to communicate yourself at work. And I'll play the devil's advocate here, saying that maybe not all things you want to say or anyone wants to say about themselves are probably permissible at work. Okay, so there maybe you can't say anything and everything you want to say. Okay, but what things, why, right? Why is that not acceptable? And maybe there's categorical things that we maybe think maybe aren't the best place to speak about at work. Okay, I get that. But if it doesn't affect performance, if it doesn't affect like what you're actually doing, if it's not something that's distracting or deleterious to someone else's productivity, then what are we really talking about, right? Like, what is the issue? Is it a cultural insensitivity? Is it some type of like implicit bias, as you mentioned? Like, what is it exactly? If it doesn't have some direct line to the job that you're actually doing, right? Then, you know, why not? Why aren't they allowed to do this? I mean, I've been very privileged in the work or the jobs that I've had. I haven't had to have too much restraint, right, on my presentation. But I imagine, like in different industries, there's more of a parameters, more of a confine to that. And I'm curious, so there's these different categories. So what can be said in different domains, like the type of domain and work? Is it professional? Professionalism is different depending on the industry you're in. And professionalism could be different depending on the region, even within a country, like the social norms. The tattooing is much more common out in California than it is in the Midwest, for example. I mean, to what extent, I'm not sure, but to some extent. So how does it all like travel, right? Like, where does it all go, and how does it differ by gender? I think that was interesting. Like, I would never have guessed that women have more tattoos than men.
Yeah, I was really surprised to see that too. I would think that men were more tattooed, just because like in the daily world that I see more men with visible tattoos than I do women.
Right.
Like, especially at the gym, like there's men that are like fully sleeved up, and then like when I see women, like I don't see like a lot of them with tattoos. And like when I go to the gym, a lot of the guys will tell me like, oh, you have way more tattoos than me. And as like a conversation starter, I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, where do they go next?
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate your presentation. Great job.
So welcome, everybody. Bear with me, I'm a little under the weather, so I'll try my best to project for everyone in the back. That being said, this upcoming year, 2023, is going to be the 38th annual conference for SIOP. And that means IO, organizational psychology, is still relatively a young field in study and practice. And some of the conversations that go on in these conferences is how much we've improved and how many things that we've accomplished in this short amount of time. Like, what have we done in this last handful of decades? What have we accomplished? And naturally, looking into the future, we ask, what will we do? I want to change this perspective from what will we do to where will we do these things. Simply put, the future of IO is internationalization. And we have a couple great references here. Dr. Fuller, who studied and spent a lot of time in South Korea, Dr. Iverson, who will be going to conduct research in Mexico in the coming months, as well as some of our members in the cohort that are coming from a whole different continent. And in a second here, I'm going to ask for everyone to participate by pulling out their phones for an activity. But only in recent years was IO recognized as a field of STEM. Can't really see, but that is a world map of kind of the utilization. And it being recognized as STEM only highlights the potential and the promise that people see in organizational psychology, generally in the United States, where it is supported by the utilization rates, but not so much, not as predominantly as in the rest of the world, unfortunately. Now, time for a quick activity. If everyone could pull out their phones. Obviously, first scan the QR code, and in a sec, I'll give you 30 seconds. It's a real quick activity. Once you scan it, it should take you to a map. Like we saw previously, you'll then locate that icon near the search engine. And then you could finally just click on anywhere on the map, whether it be somewhere you want to go and visit, somewhere you always dreamed about, or where you want to work. I put a couple of them on there already, CBU being where we are currently, as well as a couple others. So I'll give you a little bit more time for that. You could do as many as you can manage. It's a cool little website, Google Map Maker. And if I could have your attention back up here in just a second. All right. So what is going on? What are we doing for internationalization? SIOP has partnered up recently with two powerhouse organizations, EAWOP as well as IAAP, and they synthesized their missions in an initiative in 2020 called the Big Tent. Now, the Big Tent, their goal is to increase visibility as well as relevance of organizational psychology in an effort to increase the quality of work life for worldwide for everybody, everywhere. Basically, what Alliance for Organizational Psychology, what they are called, their goal, what they're looking to do is to create a web of network partners so that they could broaden their community of individuals who communicate their intentions, their practices, priorities, goals through collaboration. And what could we look forward to in more of our setting as students, at least currently? It touches up on a lot of things we've mentioned, our passions in DEI and inclusivity, as well as cross-cultural studies, and getting a perspective on an international mindset. This would, of course, be taught as well as implemented in the schools. Now, real quick, if everyone could just close their eyes for a second with me. I want us to imagine we're not in our seats anymore. We are not in this classroom. We are in maybe a different country where you're smelling different foods, experiencing new experiences, and maybe your professor isn't even speaking a language you're familiar with. You're trying all these new things, and you're also getting a perspective on diverse people, ideas, and mindsets. You could open up your eyes. So that's closing your eyes and imagining. It's not too dissimilar from what we have here today. And internationalization is the logical next step for organizational psychology to maximize our influence on a global scale. These are some of the destinations that we put into the map. I know all of them didn't populate, unfortunately, but these are only some of the many destinations that we will leave our IO footprints globally. The future is not far. Ladies and gentlemen, we are the future of IO. Thank you.
So that is awesome, like that's such a creative idea and like so impactful to have that as your ending and for us to see kind of where everybody was thinking about. I would say like my feedback is going back to the exercise. I wasn't, like I was clicking and I was trying to make a pin and I didn't know how to do it. And I think other people are maybe a little bit confused too, so just like setting it up maybe a little bit more in the beginning so we understand like exactly what we're supposed to do, how to do it, so that that impact is there at the end. But it was a great idea. It's very futuristic.
I think you had a well, the presentation itself was great, but particularly your intro and your conclusion just really stood out to me. You framed up the presentation really well. Even by reframing, you said, it's they often think about what are we gonna do, and you're like, I want to reframe that question to where are we gonna do it. I thought that was like a killer line, and then at the end you showed the map and this feedback for that exercise, but then you really helped us imagine ourselves like in that context and empowering us in a really compelling way. And so it was really strong, and I thought it was a really cool topic to present on.
I think you've said this before, but I just want to say again, your presentation skills, just the way that you command everybody's attention, the cadence of you talking, like you really remind me of like a CEO that I would like go out of my way to just stop what I'm doing and listen to what you have to say. I want some of what you have. So I just think, and I think it's cool that you noted that you're under the weather, but honestly, I feel like we wouldn't have known. You did a really flawless delivery.
Really appreciate that. Thank you.
I want to give props to your transition to this too. There's some planning behind the logistics of that, but that was really well executed. I mean, some of the things didn't populate, but like transitioning to the whole new time and everything is good.
I think it's Steve Jobs that said procrastinators have the best ideas once it's coming towards the end. I was really debating on how I was going to implement this because it was on my slide, but I had to refresh it for everything to populate. And so one thought I had right before class was to have that exercise of everyone closing their eyes and kind of thinking through that, adding something to the presentation as well as giving me some time in the back end to get that up.
Agile problem solving.
You should agile multitasking. We're describing to us something now.
Yeah, I think those were like fun, engaging ideas to get people to imagine themselves in other spaces. So you prefaced with not what we'll be doing, but where we'll be doing it. I felt that was really good in terms of the international application, right? The potential to do things in other places and the kind of United States centric PSYOP or IO really kind of experience that we all kind of have. And so being able to maybe extend some of the work that we do more broadly to countries that we've lived in or maybe are from, I think is a really nice way in which you could, or you did, capture that idea, right? That you started with, you introduced, like, we're going to introduce this idea of like really pushing the envelope for testing where IO can be applied, right? It's not just a US thing. It really is an international possibility. And then showing the map of that, I think was really nice to be able to at least graphically represent. If everyone got the actual like, you know, the flags or like the actual like pin drops, because I think I didn't even know I was supposed to drop a pin. I just saw someone posted one on the Dominican Republic. I'm like, yeah, I want to go there. That looks amazing. So I just zoomed in on it. I didn't even like drop a pin, so I didn't even know what I was supposed to do. But you pulled up at the end, and enough people did show that they had like some better knowledge than I did, and dropped a pin to the spot. So then it actually made sense. It's like, oh, okay, it's all these places that people are going to take IO, which I think was a nice finish. I think you did it really well. Well done. Good job.
Hi.
Hey.
So I don't know if I'm gonna be able to go to the Friendsgiving tomorrow. But we talked about it like at the meetup, and I wanted to bring stuff for it.
Wow.
So yeah, I don't know where I should put this stuff. So I'm just gonna set it here. So I wrote cookies and pie.
Wow.
Cause yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to go, but I wanted to contribute. So here's like 1 million cookies and a giant pie.
Always.
Yeah,
Always.
you got this.
Yeah.
You'll be okay. Trust me, after this class, like your presentation skills are gonna be so amazing. You're gonna be like, I got this. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, I think I've disturbed you enough.
You're good.
So,
You're good. Thank you.
Of
Thank you.
course. All right.
Appreciate it.
Good luck, guys. Have an
Thank
amazing
you.
night.
Thank you.
Awesome. Bye, guys. Yeah, of course. So we're not right now. We can just you do what you want. I don't care. There's
They
like
won't know.
red velvet cookies in there. I wanted to bust into those. So like, yeah, they're for you guys. You do whatever you want with them. All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.
Hi, I'm Anushka. So we'll walk you through what IO psychologists can, how IO psychologists can help you with the growing world of AI. So while working on this presentation, we came across some podcasts and articles where a question popped up that will AI replace IO psychologists and human resources? So it kind of sounded funny to me that we are the ones who create AI, right? So how can it replace us in the IO psychologist? Like, so this is AI. This is the workforce, and that's where IO, it becomes a bridge where it connects AI and the workforce. And this is how it connects us. Like IO psychologists can help us with complex planning and work that requires precise, skillful coordination and dealing with unknown and unstructured spaces, and also using empathy where they can co-relate with the workers, relate with the co-workers, and
It's okay. So actually just wants to tell that it's an empathize, and it's the machine. It's going to be really going to not dwell with a lot of things like healing. Human touch requires every now and then. So how many of guys you think that they can replace us? Like I read an article that human recruiters can be replaced by AI. So being a recruiter from last 3+ years of an experience which I'm carrying. So yeah, I just scared once I just saw the statement that actually AI can replace it because they can screen the resume very well than a human can. So the company, which I can just name it, like IKEA, it's a big organization. They use AI for screening perspective. They get the resume every now and then. So there are multiple resumes coming every now and then. How they are going to screen one resume? Human cannot reach over there. So yeah, as in the presentation, someone mentioned, like many of them, you mentioned that the task can be automated, not the jobs. So yeah, this is one of the tasks that automated this thing. But again, for understanding that why they are just looking out for the change, why they are moving ahead into the other job roles. So human can understand those perspective, not machine. So this is where we can stand up. This is where we can build up between the machine and the workforce. And also, I would like to walk you through the strategic intelligence of the industrial psychologist, like where we can just fill those gaps. After pandemic, virtual learning has become the not priority, but yeah, it's taking place somehow. The virtual learning is also coming into the picture, and building the cultures of agility and adaptability, changing the nature of work. AI cannot take a frequent steps that we can do it, because in the pandemic we came into the place that we did work from home thing, we did learning from home, and AI requires data to get reacted. We don't require any data, we just start reacting and we just adapt every now and then. So there we can just fill out work-life integration, team effectiveness across virtual and distributed environments, social justice. Yeah, social justice is one of the big topic that people can make difference, not machines. Again, it's an inclusive practice to get keep and grow talent, implement strategies and measuring progress on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belongingness, remote work and flexible working arrangements. So these are the gaps that I, as psychologist, can fill it, not the AI. So there are the topics that I was just going through, and articles that we were going through yesterday. So here we can just create a difference in the organization. So provide back support, as I did right now, only with my friend, that I'm just backing her support for those things. So yeah, we can back support always, transform personal procedure, improve efficiency and effectiveness, and manage the knowledge strategically. So these are the things that we can just kind of make a difference in the organization that AI can't reach over there. We require AI for the data and the prediction thing. We are going simultaneously. We require the help. It's not that we can eliminate those factors, but we are going ahead. So the thought which I after that we just finished it up. So it's kind of a good thing that I would like to keep. Don't worry about what automation will do to you. Worry about what you can do with the automation. So we have to go along with that simultaneously. It's not that we have to avoid those things. We are going ahead with them with it. Thank you.
I really enjoyed the picture of the bridge that you painted for IO psychologists, and I thought that was a really clever and unique, and you made your case for it, relevant, take on this conversation. And Anushka, great job setting it up. No, and really I just want to encourage you. Probably takes a lot of courage to get up and maybe not feel like you're in such a comfortable place of posture, and you did really well, and maybe even better than you think you did. Because to me, the way you set up that presentation and intro was very clear, and it correlated with the slides really well, and I understood the point that you were making. So I just want to make sure you know that. And also, I'm curious, with that last quote, a play on JFK's quote, don't ask what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. I don't know if you're familiar with that quote, but there's a quote by JFK on that. And as I saw that, I was like, oh, wow, that was like a really clever play on that quote, if that's what you guys did. And if you didn't, then you're more brilliant than you even know. But it was, yeah, anyway. I'm assuming it wasn't.
I wanna echo what Kevin said, just, Anushka, specifically to you, like, you know, as we're filling out these different things, we get to, like, the fourth one is body movement, and I was looking at you as you were still talking, I was like, wow, she's up there, and she seems really confident, and like, you were just staring at the screen, you were looking at all of us, like, I thought you seemed more confident than I come across in my presentation, so like, nice job. Thank you. And I think it's just believing that about yourself to keep going.
This is the very first time, like, no, I've never came up, like, I have stage fear, and that's why I've never been on stage. This is the very first time, like, I'm speaking in front of so many people. Goosebumps.
Well, you're doing a great job of it.
Thank you.
Yeah. You seem to be enjoying it enough. I mean, you're smiling. I don't know if that's real or not, but.
No, when she just scared, she just start laughing. I know. Very well.
That's most of us. That's all right. That's good. I think you did a really nice job. You came in the beginning of that presentation really confident, really strong. You were saying things. I mean, I don't know if the door was distracting or something, and you just get off. But I think having just having the knowledge that yes, I can definitely do this, but also use the slides to kind of reset. Anytime that there's a moment where you lose focus, because it happens to all of us, you might get off track or something happens. Maybe you make eye contact with someone in the audience. You're like, oh, I can't remember what I was talking about now. It's just distracting, all you people. But then you get back to it. You can like reorient yourself with the slides. Use them to help you. And then even in the the work you do beforehand in the preparation, to have like bullet points. There's often like notes that you could incorporate in the slides as well as a possibility, or like a notepad for yourself, just to have as this placeholder for always having somewhere that you can go to for if you run out of something to say or lose track or whatever, then it's more comfortable, especially if it's not something that you do on a regular basis. Like, you know, some people here speak in front of groups all the time. They've been doing it for years. And for some of us, it's the first time we've ever done it. So just to utilize what's at your disposal, note cards, the PowerPoint, and any type of tool or resource that you have, I mean, use it. Everyone starts somewhere. And everybody here has been very supportive and encouraging, which is great. We're all rooting for you. I mean, we all want you to do really well. And need to as you as well. I mean, any presentation that you do, I appreciate your enthusiasm for it, right? You're really excited about it. You have really great like anecdote and kind of, so being a recruiter, can we be replaced? Like the kind of passionate questions of like really intense, like, are we gonna get replaced, everybody? Like, what's gonna happen tomorrow? You know, like these moments of like, oh man, we really gotta wrestle with some of these issues. Can AI fully replace some positions? Maybe, but is it possible for most positions? Probably not.
No.
And to what extent will it be for the positions that we occupy or are interested in? To some ratio, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what might that look like? So I liked the questioning. I liked the intensity and the passion that you have. The JFK quote at the end, I thought the same thing. I thought, wow, they know JFK. That's amazing. I did not expect that.
No, actually, I like to end with the quote. Personally, I like it because I really believe so. So the thing is, the punchline should be like, you should be remember every now and then what you are talking about.
Yeah, and it's very memorable. It was good. I thought it was really appropriate. So I appreciated the presentation. Really good job. So
Thank you so
you.
much.
Thank you both. Good job. Is anyone else freezing?
Freezing.
Like, I just absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sure. This room is being like cool.
And then this whole.
Yeah, I like shivers.
I
think there's one back there. I think, yeah, I don't know. I think it's back there. I don't know if that's a light switch or what. Oh.
Hi class, I'm so sorry, I thought it was just one presenter, so I was just like out there sitting down waiting for my turn. But today I will be presenting on the fourth industrial revolution. And my name is Angelica, it's up on the screen as well. So what is Industry 4.0 or the fourth industrial revolution? And it is a revolution that heavily focuses on the interconnectivity as well as automation, machine learning, and real-time data. It consists of cyber-physical systems, Internet of Things, as well as networks. And I just wanted to let you know some of the features that distinguish this industry 4.0 from the rest, is that it's based off of velocity, the scope, and how it disrupts most industries, as well as the system impact between management and governance, as well as operations within businesses. Some of the elements of Industry 4.0, like I said previously, are cyber-physical systems, which are an integration of computation, networking, and physical processes. The Internet of Things, which consists of physical objects with sensors, processing abilities, software, and other technologies that connect and exchange data. And networks, which the elements of that would be smart factories and smart manufacturing. The importance of Industry 4.0 within the workplace or the workforce would be that it's customer-centric, it improves distribution and production, it's resource efficiently and reduces waste, as well as providing accurate logistics. We can say that Industry 4.0 can help you manage and optimize all aspects of manufacturing processes as well as supply chain. Some of the common uses of Industry 4.0 are safety, which we can see within the machinery and how we can improve it with technology. Cybersecurity, which helps make data actionable. Quality, which eases compliance and operations. Within technology, well, that is the basis of Industry 4.0, is all of it is based on technology. Smart city, where it uses infrastructure to provide security and safety. And medicine, which can help intervene or can help with an early intervention and provide an accurate diagnosis and get better treatment. So why is this important to us? With the common uses, they're basically some of the jobs that we can fall into. So I saw some YouTube video that can explain it a little bit more. And hopefully you'll be able to hear it.
Future possibilities. We will all need to develop our skills in order to embrace, adapt to this ever-changing environment. What we do to make sure we are ready and have the right skills to thrive in the fourth industrial revolution.
I'm so sorry, that was so low. But basically it talks about how because the future of job market will be influenced by Industry 4.0, we need to basically adapt and learn a new skill set. So with that being said, I did some research and I found that some of the skills that I wanted to highlight were emotional intelligence, innovation and originality, cognitive flexibility, and the eagerness to learn about upcoming technologies. The objective is to strengthen both our professional and our technological skills. And I urge each and every one of you to go out and find either some of the skills that you can grow in or learn to adapt to the Industry 4.0. Thank you.
I loved how you were able to sneak in some actionable content at the end. that was good. I feel like when I do mine, that's usually the first thing to go, and so to have it end on that note too was really nice.
I thought it was really great. I loved your slides. I also, at some point this week, like I had done the readings and then I went to read my executive summary. I swore that I read something about a fourth industrial revolution, but I couldn't find it anywhere in the reading, so I was like, maybe I read that somewhere else. So thank you for making me not feel crazy. Well, that wasn't the reading, and I appreciated learning like more about it. I just kind of like skimmed over it, read the thing that I like learning.
I didn't even know there was like a second and third industrial revolution. So I really appreciated that too. And I really liked your slides. They were pretty and really aesthetic. I feel like you had a really good theme.
I was gonna provide a timeline, but I was like, we all know. Okay.
We all know the second and the third.
So like the first one, or the second one, I believe it's based off of, you know what, never mind. I'm gonna stop right there.
I liked the presentation. I thought your take on it was really unique. And so that's always exciting to see, like, not just a summary, but an actual like perspective and trying to advocate for a particular idea. So that was good. I liked that a lot. I thought it was quite positive, where you took like this idea of an industrial revolution and said, we have some agency here and we can, like yourself, we can highlight certain areas in which we think this will be most appropriate for us, for IO professionals, whether it's in emotional intelligence or creativity and originality, creating new things, right? Like those are all, I think, exciting and really interesting areas in which the field is definitely going. But I also loved the recognition of these other parts like smart factories and other areas in which you can apply IO and AI. It's about improving the skills of both you as a person, both in your technological understanding and skills, but also in your own knowledge, right, of these things, your own awareness and ability to utilize the technology that's there, that exists. Because I think that's one of the ways in which we can kind of rapid cycle forward in our profession. So the best way for us to actually improve on things is to try them out, to do the thing, right? To whether it's using AI to screen resumes. Like I tell a story about that in another class in a year from now, so you'll have to just wait.
Can't wait.
Yeah, but about the screening process and how AI historically hasn't been very good at doing it in a way that's legal in America. But it doesn't mean that we just throw it away, right? It doesn't mean that we stop it like, we couldn't get a computer to work, so let's scrap that idea. We don't need computers, so let's just go with our physical books and card catalogs, So I think that the perspective that we have to push forward with our own knowledge and awareness and technological skills in this area is quite appropriate. I think it's very reasonable. It's just trying to figure out where that's going to be, right, for each and every one of us, where it's going to be in terms of what's interesting, what's our niche, like where are we looking to apply ourselves. But I can say, or at least I think I can say, if you ignore technology, if we just disregard its existence and try and carry on in the way that things are currently, I think we'll be quite dissatisfied, right, and miss a lot of opportunities. So I'm glad that your presentation was really about just having a perspective of an appreciation for and utilization of technology, which I think is the place to be. Thank you.
It's too big to.
Yes, it is. It's really good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so hello, my name is Adam, and similarly to other presentations, we're going to be talking about the future of IO, especially with regards to AI and automation. And I don't know about you guys, but while reading through the article, I had mixed levels of both optimism because of how it can improve the job market and the activities within each job, but also I approach it with a level of caution because growing up in Riverside, having friends, a lot of my friends are, as they say, blue collar jobs. They are Amazon truck drivers. They are UPS drivers. And so hearing those statistics about, a lot of those jobs will be lost was interesting. And, but it gave me hope as the idea of upskilling came a thing in those presentations. But yeah. So going into my presentation, going into automation and the reality that tasks and not the jobs are going to be assigned to AI. And it's our job to be able to first arm ourselves with the ability to operate and maneuver tech, and then arm others with that ability as well. And then for our own security, to develop skills that aren't replaceable. As we said before, those variable skills that require things like cooperation. And then lastly, going into the implications, both the positives and the negatives of the technology advancement throughout our time in the job sphere. So first of all, tasks. To improve the overall job effectiveness, we'll also create extra time for other activities within these companies and eliminate some biases that may occur, such as we said before, in the job hiring process. And the idea that giving context, and I highlighted context because I thought that was one of the biggest downfalls, I thought, when I initially read the readings on technology, because they're not able to give context like we humans are to very significant scenarios within fields like HR or even hiring, where you can get a glimpse of what the person is through things like interviews. So I wanted this to be kind of open-minded because as we're talking about the future, I feel like this is one of the more open-minded and open-ended questions for all of us as we enter the job sphere. But so the question I have kind of for you guys is, processes like job hiring be automated? I don't know if any of you want to kind of chime into that, but I know that we talked about things like you said, resumes. And this kind of got me thinking to other lines of thought. Like, I don't know, some of you, I think, went to Dr. Iverson's when he went to City Hall, and he harkened on subjects like representation and sometimes the need for representation within our communities. As we saw within City Hall, there was majority white, a white demographic, but if you see it reflected in Riverside, it is lots of Latinos, lots of different type of ethnicities. So my thing is, will that bridge the gap or will it further separate it? And I kind of want maybe someone to chime in on that.
Well, I think it's interesting because something that I think about is like the fact that we tend to hire people that we want to be around and that we enjoy, we like in some way. And while I think that, like you just said, can add to maybe a lack of diversity, because those that have been historically more so in power, that's changing, but they're going to gravitate towards a reflection of themselves. But then I also think that there's really something to, we wouldn't want to end up in a situation where teams are onboarding people that they're like, I don't enjoy this person. They don't kind of fit into, like, that's a real thing. We need to find somebody that not only is a good fit, they bring something too. So it's like, how would we navigate that? I think that there is a balance.
So now going into like the second side, like I said, the ability to arm ourselves with this information. So operating and using tech, that's coaching others in the idea of how to effectively use tech and advance within their own careers. We've seen these presentations that have been previously stated, we've seen that there are going to be ways maybe to transition those people in these blue collar jobs into jobs that eventually will be those blue collars again. So the ability to operate robotics at a base level and things of that nature. And then the ability to adapt is always of the most importance. I remember reading in the articles the specific thing of the idea of automation in different countries is going to be different. Like they said in the case of Japan versus and the US, who have high levels of automation, I know that some of us are going to find ourselves in maybe different countries, maybe all of us will be in the US, I don't know yet, but the ability to adapt to that and to realize that some places are going to be using it more, some places are going to be using it less, and be able to adapt to all those situations that are going to be important for us in the future. And for those of us right now within our careers or working towards that career, developing skills again and a resume that are in line to the future landscape of the job market, which I feel like it's been pretty good throughout all of our classes. We've seen ways to improve our resumes, improve our skills to make us stand out amongst other applicants. And if that is to be said that resumes and things of that nature are going to have AI screening, maybe we could find the loophole, maybe we could find the thing that they look for and put that in the resumes. So once again, to develop these skills that scripts cannot replicate, the more complex issues that require collaboration, such as in the article stated, the collaboration between architects and things of that nature. And this is just like a diagram, similarly to the bridge one. It just shows the sphere of I/O, and it's kind of pulled on both people and automation in hopes of bringing it together. And so kind of to end it off, I want to talk about the implications, because this is kind of the things that I came into the articles trying to question, and still things that really haven't been solved to me now. So while robots can do tasks that seem like compile information, I believe there'll be a greater emphasis on interpreting the information as it comes to us, especially in my case, talking about the field of HR, which I am very interested in. Not everything is just going to be by data. There are things that are very case specific, in terms of even the data that's given to us. So for example, let's just say that there's information on people and their even sales numbers. There are going to be certain things like what happens if they had a child recently, they have less work. Those are the things that we're going to have to take into account and look at it in the lens of a humanitarian as well, for me going into the field of HR. But some of the good things, like we said before, in fields such as aerospace and medicine, you can see a huge boon in activities like diagnosing, increases the speed and overall effectiveness of that, and improving safety for blue jobs, while hopefully not taking away those blue collar jobs. I don't know, that's to be seen in the future. And so once again, I kind of want to end it on a question to you all, because more so than not, these articles have given me even more questions than answers kind of on the future as we're gonna jump into it. But how are you all preparing for the change that will continually occur within the workforce? And then that idea of context and how to operate around AI and interpret it, how do you guys view that?
I personally hate electronic stuff. Like, I really enjoy writing and like filling out paperwork. So I hope that like maybe somewhere in the future that you have the option to either do stuff all like electronically or on paper. And I know paper is like it's really bad because it's like waste, but still, I love it personally.
So anyone else have any, like, how you guys are preparing for the future and maybe you can help me?
Well, not necessarily preparing for it, but I think that along with all of the cool things that AI is doing, I think it comes with its own issues. Like, for example, on TikTok, they're saying when you apply to a job on your resume, you can like copy and paste the description of the job and then paste it and then set the text to white. So automatically the AI will like bump your resume up to the top because you have already set everything on the description to what they're looking for, but are you really what they're looking for? You're kind of like cheating the system. So I think it comes with a lot of issues that will have to be sorted out as well in the future.
But on an optimistic note, I did want to end with a quote because I did start going into the articles with optimism. And I said, and then I approached you with caution because like, this stuff is kind of scary. But a quote by Rashid Omaru, all the tools, techniques, and technology in the world are nothing without the head, heart, and hands to use them wisely, kindly, and mindfully. And I hope all of us that are going to the field of psychology remember this and utilize that to the best of our advantage. Thank you.
Wow, we are like at time for class, is that right? Yeah. Wow, okay, so I'll give you feedback. I thought there was a lot of material, right? A lot of content, you went through a lot of slides, a lot of stories, anecdotes, little examples, a lot of examples of this industry, this industry, this industry. The one thing I will say, and that was all great. I liked all that. You gave a lot of information. One recommendation I would say in terms of the interaction with the group, the audience, whoever your audience is, when they volunteer information, acknowledge it, say thank you.
Gotcha.
You moved on so fast. Not just at the end, but when Alina spoke earlier, when you were like trying to fish, like somebody help me, and Alina's like, I'll help you. And you're like, great, okay. It's like, but say thanks, say thank you. So that just acknowledge you like, oh, that's a great point. Cool. Right? Like that's wonderful. Thank you for that. Yeah, good. Excellent. That's perfect. And so thank you for that, right? Thank you for that unique perspective on the horrifying nature of how we can manipulate, AI. You don't have to say like, and on a positive note, which makes it like, oh, awkward. Wow, did she say the wrong thing? No, you just acknowledge and say thank you. That's a great perspective. And I have this other thing that I want to say as well. Like, you know what I mean? Like to move those transitions a little more smoothly. The easy way to do it is just acknowledge what they said and thank them for it. And then you can get on to the next slide that you had prepared. So that would just be my recommendation there. I think your final quote was really good, given that you had the preface with, I'm a little confused as to, is this a good thing or a bad thing, right? That was an undertone of the whole presentation. Is this good or bad? And then at the end, you said, well, it's both, but we need to be mindful and careful and considerate of how we navigate this. And I thought the quote was perfect.
The hard part was as they were like giving me information back to me, I was kind of like processing it in my mind too. Like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I kind of forgot. But yeah, I'll do that.
Well, that's good. Thank you. One more time. Good job. I didn't know. Like I thought we had plenty of time. It was like 6 o'clock. We had 3 more presenters. I'm like, oh, we're good. 6:45. Man, I don't know how we did it. Okay, good job. We're done for a week, right? With next week off. I hope you're off in enough classes where you can get some rest and recovery from your semester, your first semester of grad school. I know it's crazy. Exciting times. So get some rest and catch up on anything you need catching up on. I look forward to seeing you refreshed and back here in 2 weeks. All right? All right. Good night. Goodbye.
You gonna be around next week? Yeah, I'm joking.
Yeah.
I will be here.